Today I'm going to show you how to change the oil on a 2006 Dodge Caravan. The first thing you want to do, if you haven't started your car for a little while, you want to start it to get the oil. You just want to get the oil warm. You want to get the oil warm so that it moves around in the engine, so when you drain it, it comes out easier and you get more of the oil out. You don't want to just change the oil and have the oil being cold. Also, you don't want the oil too hot, because then you can burn yourself on the parts underneath the car. I'm going to show you what you need for your oil change. I have 6 quarts of oil out here. It should take 5 if you don't change the oil filter, but when you change the oil filter it should take 5.5, so I have 6 to be safe. You want to have a XG16 Fram, which is a higher quality oil filter than just the regular Fram, the 16. Then you got your grips to take off the oil filter, the old one, and I like to use a socket wrench. This is going to take a 13mm socket. If all you have is one of these open end wrenches, which I don't recommend because you have a tendency more to strip it, you never want to use the open end part of the wrench. Always use the box end part in the back. It gives you a better. Okay, you don't really have to lift the van too high because it has a pretty good clearance, but I'll show you where I put the jack right underneath the frame of the car. You want to have it nice and sturdy. You also, if you're going to use a jack like this because it has wheels on it, you always want to use so you always want to have a stand underneath your car, the van in this case, just to make double safe that it doesn't fall on you, especially when you're using a jack that has wheels, because that's not very safe. So I have the stand here. As you can see, I haven't had to lift the van very high. Everything you're going to get to is right over here. Okay, I know it may be kind of hard to see underneath here, but I kind of want to give you guys an idea of what it looks like. Alright, there's the oil filter. Hangs up upside down there. That's pretty easy. Your drain plug is actually on the opposite side of where you can see from here. The plug is going to face the opposite direction, which makes it a little bit difficult as far as knowing which way to turn. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. Alright, well, this is the socket wrench that I prefer, and as you know the old rule, they say lefty loosey, righty tighty. So I've got this set up where when it turns to the left, you can see it has tension on it. Where it turns to the right is when it's making the noise. So this will loosen the oil bolt. And what happens, and the reason I want to explain this is because people have been known to strip the oil bolt on these 2006 Dodge Caravans, because the bolt is actually the opposite. So let's just say this is the oil pan, which we'll be facing, and behind it is the bolt. So what happens is when you're underneath here, it's facing the opposite. So when you're turning it, you'll actually be turning it to the right, but it's loosening it because, like I said, it's the opposite. It's on the opposite direction. So you have to remember that. If the bolt is facing the opposite from you, then the rules are going to change. It's going to be lefty tighty, righty loosey, because of the way the bolt is. Alright, I just want to demonstrate this one more time. When it goes to the right, it's loosening. So now we know when you turn it to the left, it's actually going to loosen the bolt. It's not going to tighten it. But now when I put it underneath here, I know this is going to be kind of hard to see. But when I get it on the bolt, which is on the opposite side of this oil pan, oh man. Since I already have my socket set, I'm turning it to the right, and it's actually loosening it as I turn it to the right. Because if I was on the other side of this, I would be turning it to the left. Now I got it loose, and once again, I'm turning it to the right. Oopsie. Okay, I'm loosening the oil bolt. Alright, got it loose enough where I could do it by hand now, almost. Alright, so I got it loose so I can turn it by hand. Like I said, it's in the right direction, but if I was on the other side of this oil pan, I would actually be turning it to the left in the thread part. And there goes the oil coming out. Alrighty, here's the new oil filter. I've already put a little bit of oil on this cap right here, because what you want to do is you want to lubricate this here ring. It's made of rubber, so when you put this on, it will be nice and tight on the car. Here's the oil wrench. There's the oil filter. We're going to be underneath the van, and we'll do this underneath there, and you want to turn it to the left. Take it off. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Off the new one. So the same rule is going to be lefty loosey, righty tighty. So in this case, we are going to be underneath the van. Okay, so here we are underneath the van. I'm going to get another bowl. Alright, I'm going to put this underneath here to collect the oil that's going to fall from this oil filter. I've got it loose. I'm turning it to the left. And of course you can use gloves when you do this. I didn't do that because it gets a little messy. I like to pour the oil from the filter also out so that when you throw this away it's not as messy. So we got the oil draining from the oil plug over there. It's just about empty. This here is draining, and when this is almost finished draining, we will put all the pieces back together. Okay, this is the old oil filter. Looks a little nasty. It's probably been about 6,000 miles since I've changed this oil. And again, I use the same frame. I do like these. They're rated pretty well. The frame, the gold extra synthetic. It's the XG16. Okay, I got my socket wrench. I turned it so it goes the other direction. Whoops, I didn't. I'm going to flip this switch. So now righty is tighty again. And I'm going to put this bolt underneath here. The oil has pretty much stopped from dripping. Alright, time to put the oil plug back in. Like I say, and I keep repeating this because people have stripped these oil plugs by turning it the wrong way. I'm putting it in here. It's the opposite direction of me. So I'm actually going to be turning it to the left when you look at it. And I got my socket wrench. Now you can put your finger behind this and hold the socket wrench since there's no tension on it, so that when it goes the opposite direction it will automatically rotate down.
Yeah.
Alrighty guys, things are getting a little messy, so I decided to put my gloves on. That's how I probably should have started. And like I said, now we're tightening it. But instead of turning to the right, we're turning it up to the left. You don't have to use a whole lot of pressure in tightening these. You don't want to over tighten it, because then when you try to get it off later, it's going to be really hard to get off. What I'm going to do at the very end when I'm about done is I'm going to check for leaks anyway, so if it's leaking you'll see it when the engine's running. But then again, like I said, you do not want to over tighten this. It also looks like it's quit dripping very much oil from where the oil filter was. So I'm going to put the oil filter back on. Okay, here's the new oil filter. As you remember, I put a light coat of oil on that ring, the rubber ring. It goes right up here. This is very easy. It's easy to get to, a whole lot easier than probably a lot of other cars. You're turning it to the right. And again, the oil filter actually is going to be on less tight than you actually put on that oil plug. So this here is actually recommended you just put it on hand tight, but my hands may not be as strong as a grip as I would like. So I'm going to do a half of a turn with the oil wrench. Okay, I got the oil wrench. And all I'm going to do is a half turn to the right. And you'll feel it's nice and snug. Again, this one you definitely don't want to over tighten. This will hold up without any leaks. I know some people get nervous about the oil plug. The oil that came out, and you can see it did need an oil change. Come back over here to the van, and I will show you. Okay, let's go back over to the van. I'm going to show you where the oil goes in. Right here it says engine oil. Turn this to the left or counterclockwise. And then to make it not as messy, you can use an oil filter. I should say oil funnel. Oh, no. And start putting the oil in. And I'm going to do 5 quarts of these. And then I'm going to check the oil level, and if it needs the other half, I'm going to do that. I have tightened up the oil drain plug and the oil filter. You want to do that before you put the oil in, otherwise you're going to have another mess as all your new oil spills out onto the floor. Okay, this is the 5th quart of oil that I'm putting in the van. What I'm going to do is, I know it should take another half a quart, but I want to test to make sure there's no leaks. Set the van down on the ground and then check the oil level. I'm going to do that here now. Okay, I'm going to start up the van. This will get the oil moving around inside the engine, and then we can check to see if there's any leaks underneath there. I'll show you in a second, but this rubber gasket, when I took off the old oil filter, actually stayed on the car. As you can see, it's not on the oil filter. It should be this black rubber gasket like this. Well, for whatever reason it's stuck onto the car, and as you can see, it started leaking after I started the car, and now it's all over the floor. So what I'm going to have to do is take the oil filter off, get that extra rubber piece off, and then put the oil filter back on again. I'll show you when this job is done. Okay, well here's that oil filter gasket that came off, and basically got stuck up there where the new oil filter was going, so it couldn't make a seal because it had 2 gaskets when it only should have had the one that was on the oil filter. So you gotta be careful of this. This doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the rubber oil gasket. Okay, here we go again. I got the van running. I'm checking around the oil filter. The drips. There's no drips now. Back here is where the oil plug would be. And if it was dripping, you would see something dripping in the oil pan. Everything is good to go this time, guys. Okay, now you don't want to forget to put back in your oil plug up here on the top. Okay, so now I want to check. I got the van down off the jacks to make it a little bit more level. I'm going to clean off the oil dipstick, and I'm going to see if I need to put another half a quart or so in there. Well, it's really kind of hard to see since the oil is new, but to me it looks like that 5 quarts actually has filled it up. All right, well that's it. That's the end of the oil change. Thank you.